Hi, my name is Pamela Fuselli, and I'm the host of Popping the Bubble Wrap. Are you the person in your family who worries about the safety of others, about buying safety products and using them? Are you yelling, "Yes, that's me"? Then this is the podcast for you. Raising a child or children can be a hair-raising undertaking, and keeping them safe is your priority. Parachute's Popping the Bubble Wrap podcast explores what you really need to think about and provides easy tips on prevention strategies. No bubble wrap here, though. It's one of those milestones that we don't want to miss, the moment our toddler takes their first steps. It's such a special moment. All at once, the world is theirs to discover. And suddenly, your home looks a lot different than it did only moments before. It looks like a maze of hazards and potential injuries for your newly mobile little one. Today, we're going to talk about it. What exactly in your home environment do you need to be worried about? And how can you make it a safe space for your wandering tot to explore and learn? Joining me today for the conversation are parents Brianne and Lillian and our expert, Dr. Natasha Kolia, pediatric emergency medicine doctor and simulation educator at Sick Kids. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Brianne and Lillian, you both have kids who are now walking around, some longer than others. Can you tell me about some of the challenges you faced with your young kids once they were mobile, once they were able to get around the house? What are some of the top of mind issues or stories that you have? Brianne, maybe I'll start with you.
My children are now 3 and 6. And so my 6-year-old, of course, he is very aware of hazards around the house, safety. My 3-year-old is really exploratory and very excited and in the fiercely independent stage. And there are a number of things that come to mind when answering this question. But the first two that I will focus on are stair safety and kitchen chair safety. With stairs, we do have our baby gate in place. My 6-year-old can now open the baby gate, no problem. So it's good giving him reminders. Make sure you close it when you're done, because our 3-year-old is, as I said, fiercely independent, and she has no problem going up and down the stairs. And she's still in that place where she's a toddler, so she still toddles a little bit here and there on the stairs. Mm-hmm. And so it's a good reminder for us just to remind her, hold a railing, hold a hand, bum scoot down the stairs if you don't have an adult with you. So that's a really big one for us, is the stair safety. And the other one that I mentioned was kitchen chair safety. Again, with our toddler, we have switched her away from a booster seat to sitting like a big kid at the kitchen table. And one of the challenges that we constantly run into with her with that is wiggling, moving, wanting to run around while she's eating dinner or a snack, getting up and down, playing musical chairs, going from seat to seat. We have 6 seats at the table. She will literally tell people to move so she can sit there and try it out. And so just keeping her calm, cool, collected in one spot, and also preventing her from falling, because she has had a couple of tumbles off the chair when we first transitioned her over, and just helping her, I think, realize the strength in her body. That's a really big one for us.
It's a lot of learning for you once you go from crawling to walking around, and the freedom and of course the level of energy that they have just is a combination, right? That is hard to, and you don't want to restrict them too much, but you do want to keep them safe. And especially when they see their bigger siblings doing things that they now want to do. Lillian, what's been your experience? You have 2 boys, right?
Yes, so I have 2 boys that are 4 and 7, soon to be 5 and 8. It's funny that you talked about the dining room table and chairs. My kids went from crawling to running, so we sort of bypassed and skipped the walking phase. We had inherited a glass table, which is beautiful for adults, but a parent's worst nightmare. When you have young children, they can't see the glass. It's just above their head. So we actually had to, we bought these foam pieces that line the edge of our table, and then we put a tablecloth over it so that they could see it. And when you were talking about the high chairs, I can completely relate. One of the things that my kids like to do is push their feet against the base of the table so that their chair tips a little. It's like a swing. So we've had once or twice, the kids flip the chairs over and them falling and hitting their heads. So not great. We try to correct them every time we see it, but it happens, and it's not necessarily something we can stop them from doing, other than maybe nailing the chairs down to the floor. One of the things my kids love to do is climb, and it's awful because we had purchased a bunk bed so that they could continue to share a room and that they could bond together. My 4-year-old loves to climb it. He loves to climb furniture. And I don't know if you've ever experienced your kids climbing on dressers, but my kids do it. So he'll scale the bunk bed, go on top of the dresser so that he can knock on the window and wave at the neighbors and the dogs that pass by in front of the house. Luckily, nothing's happened so far. They're knocking on the screen piece, and it's been cold, so they haven't been opening the windows as much, but they know how to navigate the lock on the window and the little turny device that opens our window all the way. And it's a wide window, and they're on the second floor. So we're always concerned about that. We don't allow them to stay upstairs without an adult being upstairs, just in case, because they are very adventurous.
Yeah, adventurous. And not understanding that screen in the window is not going to stop them from falling out of the window. Have you you said your kids were like or one of them, the youngest one, is a furniture climber. Have you used, brackets like with your bookcases or your bureaus to attach them to the walls?
We have. So we actually didn't do it for my older one because my older one never climbed anything. So we never felt the need to secure things to the wall or to secure things to the floor. We've now installed a bracket to hold our bookcase, which is as tall as the room, on our main floor to the wall because he uses it as a ladder. The dressers, we haven't done anything because they're more squat and stable and they're wide. But I tell you, they're very creative in what they choose to climb and what they choose to scale. The other thing is our counters in our kitchen. They take those little handles as step ladders and they climb their way up. So we don't even know what else we need to secure around our house. But it's definitely something that we're starting to think more and more about as we watch the little one climb everything.
Brienne, this is sounding really familiar, that the younger one is the one that's, more adventurous, shall we say. And your little one wants to be independent, and she's taken to, getting up in the middle of the night, as you shared a little bit with us before this recording. So can you share that one story with us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my 3-year-old, as I mentioned, fiercely independent. She's a big girl. She is at daycare with a wide range of kids. So she's kind of in the middle in terms of the age range. And so at daycare, seeing her friends also independently go to the bathroom and do things on their own, and also watching her big brother independently do things on his own. She lately has been getting up 4, 5, 6 in the morning. She's also freshly night potty trained, which has been a huge contributing factor. And it's wonderful because she is, again, really independent with ensuring she goes to the bathroom. But yesterday morning at around 5:30, my husband and I heard her wake up. So we knew she was awake. And we heard a little bit of movement. Then we went, maybe she's taken herself to go pee, because on a couple of occasions, she's put herself on the potty, goes pee, and then she calls us. And then we heard nothing. It was that dreaded parent silence. And my husband got up and said, "Did you go to the bathroom?" And she was in the room outside of our bedroom going, "Yes." "What did you do?" "I went pee-pee and poo-poo." "Did you flush, wipe, or wash your hands?" "No." So my husband jumps out of bed. He goes, cleans her up. Luckily, she was not very messy, thank goodness. And then promptly sanitized every single toy she could have possibly interacted with, every single doorknob, every wall, everything. So she is in that independent phase. where she just wants to do everything by herself. And we want to champion that, but we also want to keep her safe. And and that's, that delicate balance of that risky play versus hazardous play, and allowing autonomy and growth in a really productive, safe way, but also being sure to for her to know that what will help her stay safe and how we as parents can support her, and also, her daycare supervisor, her grandparents, babysitters.
Right.
So just instilling that reminder for a fiercely independent toddler is definitely a challenge.
That's true. Natasha, you this must sound very familiar to you in the work that you do. What are some of the things that you hear from parents or see when you are treating parents and kids in the emergency department? And this, what Brianne and Lillian have shared with us. What are some of the things you want parents to know?
I think, first of all, this is a great conversation. Before I get into, specifically what are the things that, and what both of you are saying, Brianne and Lillian, is exactly kind of the things that we hear from parents when they come to the emergency department. Lo and behold, though, when you're in the emergency department, you're seeing some of the worst injuries, and we want to get to the point of preventing that. So that's why I'm loving this conversation. But first thing I tell parents is parenting is hard. Most of the time you're finding yourself doing the best you can in exceptional circumstances. So when it comes to childproofing a home, in terms of what do you need to do, what do you need to be thinking about, what do you need to do to be safe, is to be as prepared and anticipate as much as you can. And what does that look like? And so I think you've both touched upon this, which is, one, know your child, know their age, know where they are developmentally. Is the baby too young to lift their head? Can your child open a door on their own? Can they get up in the middle of the night, walk to the bathroom, but there's stairs there? Can they move a chair to like a dresser? Can they move it to the stove? And then also anticipating your child's like new skills that they can develop, because the one thing you want to do is do that before. So if you start seeing them getting up and standing and pulling at things, you're going to want to start thinking about what's within reach. What can they grab? What can injure them? And then the most you can do, you can actively supervise, but let's be realistic. That's really hard, especially if you have more than one and you're an active parent or you're working from home. I do want to add, though, quickly, because we are talking about this, all these things that we're talking about is part of the awareness, the anticipation and preparation. And then when we talk about specific things you can do in your home, which I'm going to touch just briefly on, is I want any other parents listening to this discussion that we're having, that what I'm proposing and what I'm saying, we understand does not necessarily mean that it is applicable to everyone, because we recognize that there's disparities between different economic groups, also different cultural differences. We know that we can decrease rates of injury when we improve people's access to healthcare and education, so on and so forth. And there's lots of efforts, moving forward in terms of policies and banning certain equipment that we know is deemed safe for some, but not actually fully safe. So when it comes to child injuries, let's just remember this. There's a deep sense of guilt when something happens. Let's just address that. And with social media and how you should be a parent, how you shouldn't be a parent, and what you should do, and, generational differences, all you can do is be prepared and anticipate and give yourself grace. Please give yourself grace. Mistakes happen, things happen. Give yourself some forgiveness and grace when it does. And we learn from it. And we hope that more of it is under the risky, age-appropriate play and not so much the hazard that leads to injuries. And so lots of things you guys talked about is proofing with gates, heights, right? We're talking about the stairs, proofing with appropriate gates, proofing corners that are sharp, proofing furniture, and making sure that they're nicely mounted to the wall. And that includes dressers with TVs and bookshelves, like you were saying. I don't know how they do it. They one day are crawling, next minute they're crawling up things, and you're like, how did you get there? Proofing the beds. So how does that look for one? Maybe it's guardrails for the beds when it's age appropriate at a certain height. For others, they may not have the money for guardrails, so push it up against a wall. So now you only are dealing with two parts of the bed. And this includes things that I would say most commonly we see: the falls, the traumas. So couches, people don't think about couches and the leg rest. That leg rest goes up, your child can quickly scoot under. That's an injury. Proofing doors. You know how quickly with another sibling, that door gets slammed on that finger, and that's an injury that we think about. Your stove. how simple it is to realize that when your child's reaching, they can grab at pot handles. So turn those handles in. The knobs, actually, if you can remove the knobs and you have a gas stove, think about removing the knob when you're not paying attention or when you're not using the stove so that no one can just quickly come around and go and turn it on. And now your gas stove has been on. We talk about ingestions is another big one. So on top of falls, ingestions are huge. Just you have to put everything in cabinets. You need to close those cabinets at a high spot that they can't reach. And when they start climbing, learn how to lock those cabinets. The challenge is in the garage. Sometimes you can't do that. And kids like blue, shiny, smelly, nice smelling things and might go for it. And the last one we talk about is burns. Burns are huge. Burns are massive, and I'll say even choking along with ingestions is there. We can get into that a little bit more in terms of equipment out there that's not necessarily so safe. But when it comes to burns, it's just being very aware. You're a quick on the go parent. You want to grab your coffee, you want to grab your child, and you think that's okay. But all it takes is that baby to squirm, and now you've got a hot cup of coffee, and it's not intentional. So put a lid on your coffee. When the coffee's on a table, use plastic mats or mats that stick and not so much, cloth that they grab at and spill it everywhere. Burns are a common thing that we're going to start seeing now. We see it during winter because most people are indoors. And that also includes your breast milk for moms and dads that are feeding. Don't microwave the bottle. You don't know what part of the bottle is going to burn, and then you burn your child, and always test those things. And the same with hot water in the home when you're bathing your child. Make sure to test it on you before you actually bathe your child. There's lots I can talk about, but those are the main ones I would say that we're seeing.
Thanks, Natasha. This is a great conversation. We are going to take a quick break and we will be back to continue our discussion. Nearly 3 decades ago, Amazon set out to be Earth's most customer-centric company, where people can discover and purchase the widest possible selection of safe and authentic goods. As part of that mission, they obsess over earning and maintaining trust by ensuring that they provide a trustworthy shopping experience. Amazon is dedicated to helping you make informed choices and use your purchases safely. Visit www.amazon.ca/product safety and usage and explore expert tips, articles, and videos from our partners to ensure a secure shopping experience. So, Natasha, before the break, you gave us a lot of good information, and it may seem overwhelming to parents to think about all those different things that they need to think about, to prepare for. What advice that Parachute gives is get down and look at the world from your child's perspective. So, that view of that pot handle sticking out from the stovetop, what is going to interest them? And the other piece that I think that is really important message that you gave was give yourself some grace, that mistakes are going to be made, or just inattention, or, things will happen. This podcast is called Popping the Bubble Wrap because we want to make sure we focus on the things that are really dangerous. And there's other things that will result in bumps and bruises, and that's okay. Some of the things that come to mind are the changes over time, and between the parents that are parenting today and advice that maybe their parents will give, the grandparents of their children will give, and things that change. So can you talk to parents a little bit about, maybe what their approach could be when they get unsolicited or even solicited advice that maybe they know isn't really relevant today?
I love this question because I think it goes deeper and runs deeper amongst all of us. And that also includes us as physicians. First, the approach should always be we're aware that things have changed over time. That means products, the built-in creation and the whole verification and safety of a product has changed over time. We are in a world where we try to be less anecdotal and more science research based. And that is not wrong. We also know that we have the resources to be able to look and review and ensure safety much better than we used to in the past. And some might see that as, oh, we have things to hide, but we don't. This is great. These are children. We don't want them injured in any way, shape, or form. And as we learn over time more, then we have the resources to explore it more. And so what I tell parents is, it's okay to approach those individuals who provide you with, 3 different people with 3 different pieces of advice. Recognize that they're coming from a place, hopefully, of love, because usually it's our family, like our parents or a grandparent or a really good friend. Validate that you understand that they're trying to be helpful. So, thank you. I appreciate your advice and I appreciate, what you used to do. You can choose 1 or 2 approaches now. You can say, I appreciate the advice. I know what I feel I'm comfortable with right now when it comes to keeping my child safe, and I'm going to continue to do that because that's what I'm comfortable with. Or the other approach is use kind of the facts. It's, I know, and I've learned over time that, where that would have been safe one time, we've realized that it's not safe anymore. And this is some information I have that supports what I'm thinking and what I want to do as a parent. Maybe I can share that with you as well. So maybe that can help you understand where we're at with the booster chair, the jolly jumper, the chair on wheels, the trampoline. Some of the, and you can tell I'm very specific about some of the things I'm saying because there's been a lot of growth, the amber beads, the weighted blankets, so on and so forth. So I think there's that approach. It can always be kind. The question becomes is when it's becoming overbearing. And then you start feeling like you're an inadequate parent. Remember, there is data out there. Parachute is a great resource. And there is a lot of links on Parachute and a lot of parental pieces of take-home sheets for you to have. And they're always up to date. The FDA, Canada Health. When you're concerned about something in terms of a piece of equipment or how to help protect and keep your child safe, you have these resources that are tried and true. And so you can always resort back and fall back on that.
That's great. Great advice. Brianne, Lillian, the object of this podcast is to get parents feeling better about parenting, to help support them, empower them. So, if you have any questions right now for Natasha, we're happy to talk about those, or, maybe what are some of your advice to other parents about how you've dealt with safety, from social media, from your family, those types of things. I'll open it up. Lillian, maybe I'll start with you.
Sure, thank you. And Natasha, I thought that your information was fantastic. One of the things that we forget about sometimes as parents, as we try to nurture them and teach them things, and as we give them more responsibilities, is the hazards that exist around our house, especially in the kitchen. One of the things that my kids love to do is help us make coffee. And we have an espresso. We used to have an espresso machine, and they know how to put the pod in, turn it, press the button, and they're fascinated by watching that coffee drip. But that's a hazard. And we've taken to, after they press the button, they come off the chair and they can watch from a distance. Just because one of them, and it's always the younger one, he gets handsy and he's like, oh, let me touch it. And he stuck his little finger into the stream of coffee flowing. So it's a good reminder that sometimes with the best intentions, we allow our children certain liberties, but there are dangers to them. And just to be aware of what those are. So I do appreciate that.
Thanks, Lillian. I think what you highlight too is finding that balance, right? We want them to explore. We want them to be curious. We don't want to blunt that growth because that's part of growth, but that's also part of their ability to start learning on their own what is safe and what isn't with an explanation. And so it's that transition of slow graded responsibilities around some of these things that go from being a hazard now maybe to a risk. But that goes with their developmental growth. So I appreciate that because sometimes what I think this is allowing us to do is I also get to hear you as parents and know what kind of information and the way I speak about it. Is it helpful? Or does it come across as just, this is what you should do, right? Like this is a great conversation, and thanks to Pam for allowing this to happen. So I do genuinely, and I love that idea. So I'm going to keep that one in mind.
There you go, a tip. Brianne, what would help you? Is there anything else that we can do or wisdom that you want to share before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I also want to say, Natasha, what you shared was really eye-opening to hear as a parent as well. And that piece about giving yourself grace and not being pressured by what we see on social media, because there are so many accounts that aim to be helpful that really can drum up some of that parent guilt and make us feel like we're not doing enough. But we also have to recognize that on social media, you're seeing the best. You're not seeing the everyday.
Mm-hmm.
And so to really appreciate that. I think one thing that I've learned as a parent is to put my pride aside as a parent. My son, when he transitioned from his toddler bed into his twin bed, he was 4 going on 5, and we talked about it, and he was like, I don't need a railing. I'm a big boy. I'm good. And so we went without the railing. After 2 nights, he rolled off his bed at around 2 a.m. and fell. Luckily, he was okay. No bumped heads. He just kind of fell on his arm. But there was a lot of pressure that my husband and I felt to go, well, he's almost 5. He's a big kid. A 5-year-old shouldn't have a railing. He's in kindergarten. And then we immediately went out, bought a railing, installed it. He used it for 6 months. And then what we did do, and what Natasha touched on earlier, is we repositioned his room. And so there's no railing. But if he rolls either way, he rolls into a desk or into his dresser. So we have, which is, by the way, bolted to the wall. And so
I was going to ask.
So we do have those precautions in place, but
Right.
My biggest takeaway is knowing your child, not succumbing to the pressures of social media, what you're being told by other parents or non-parents, and putting your child's safety in front of the parent's pride.
Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Lillian, Brianne, and Natasha, Dr. Tash. I really appreciate coming on this podcast. I think that is one of the major things, all of us, whether we're parents or not, or in parenting or outside of parenting, to give ourselves some grace, cut ourselves some slack, because parenting and life in general is difficult and challenging, but so rewarding. So thank you for coming on and sharing. It's been really great to talk to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Popping the Bubble Wrap is a podcast of Parachute, Canada's national injury prevention charity. We release episodes monthly. Visit us at parachute.ca and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Parachute Canada. Don't keep us a secret, though. Help other parents find this podcast by sharing the link to Popping the Bubble Wrap and taking a second to submit a review. It really does help. Popping the Bubble Wrap is produced by Story Studio Network.